Have you been sneezing already? Well, it's been a warm February across the Coastal Empire and Lowcountry, and as a result, the pollen, it's back, and it's on the rise pretty quickly due to those warm temperatures that we've been seeing. Now, what is pollen? It's that powdery substance, that yellow powdery substance. You sometimes see it on your car or even on that outdoor furniture. It's produced by plants, again, typically during that spring time period, and depending on the weather, even February as well. Now, it's very crucial for seed and fruit development and inevitably the production of new plants throughout the year. Now, we have a couple of main types of pollen that we track across the Coastal Empire and Lowcountry, one of them being the tree pollen, especially the oak trees that we have throughout the area. That typically starts up late February, but it can even happen earlier in the month of February as well, obviously depending on the weather. Earlier this month, we had temperatures in the 80s, so we got a little bit of a kickstart. Now, grasses. Now, that typically happens a little bit later, March through the early summer months, and then weed pollen. Think of ragweed, for example. A lot of people have problems when it comes to their allergies due to the ragweed. That kicks up a little bit later in the year, August until the first freeze, usually late fall, early winter months of those seasons. Now, some of the weather factors at play here when we think of pollen, it's that warm weather, obviously, usually during the spring months, around February here, or even March, for example. That promotes the plant growth and helps to get that pollen going. Now, winds, once this is introduced to the equation, that can help to lift that pollen up into the air and sometimes carry it far distances, inevitably leading to it accumulating on those surfaces. Your car, for example, if you have a black colored vehicle, you could sometimes really see it across the spring time frame. Usually this happens on dry days as well. That allows for that pollen to travel freely through the air. It's when you add moisture to the equation that it really starts to weigh that pollen down. Some of the rainfall can wash that pollen into those puddles, giving them sort of a yellowish tint. The best time to be outside during the spring months is usually after a heavy rain event. But even with thunderstorms, if you have a gusty thunderstorm, for example, you can actually get an uptick in your allergies because that wind really gets the pollen going off the trees in a really quick time span. Now, in terms of the next couple of days, your Thursday and Friday, while it will be chilly across the area, it will be dry and it will be breezy, leading to a moderate to high risk for that pollen across the area. Will be moderate for Saturday and Sunday, but over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be seeing many more days in that higher category. So what are some of the tips as we step out into the garden here? Make sure you're rinsing off if you're headed outdoors for long periods of time and if you're susceptible to the pollen. Now, also close all your doors and windows. Don't let those doors and windows stay open because it'll be very easy for those small particles of pollen to seep in through the cracks. Also, check your filters, especially your AC systems, to make sure they're functioning properly. And also stay indoors during the late morning and early afternoon hours where that pollen is most susceptible to be out there and interacting with. It's best to maybe get some gardening done during the early morning and late afternoon hours when that pollen starts to settle in. But again, it's best to minimize that as well. I'm meteorologist Brian Michigan on your side.